Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about the new Quantum Leap Revival, Season 2, Episode 9, Off the Cuff. The episode's description reads as follows. When Ben leaps into a bounty hunter escorting the world's most slippery criminal, a deadly pursuit forces them to go into hiding, but Ben quickly realizes this leap is more than meets the eye. Addison faces a difficult decision. The episode is directed by Joe Mendez, and the episode was written by Alex Berger, who did last season's Friendly Skies. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a sport read podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribe to our channel. All right, shout-outs this week. This is regarding, most of this would be about the last episode, which aired like a month ago. This would be Nomads. I think we titled it Nomad, like most of the podcasting world.
Yeah.
Because they had the name wrong.
They changed the title the last second on us after we'd recorded.
Yes. So, Grace Johnson. This is about her theory that we keep hearing about Ben and Hannah fathering a child.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've already covered why that's not really a thing. That's not really going to happen, and I think this episode pretty much kills that whole idea in the first place.
You know, I'm positive people are going to be like, "Oh, wait, is that his son?" And we're going to have to like teach people how math works.
Right, but all right. So I have a few problems besides the obvious logistical problems, and I'm going to bring up the movie Wonder Woman 1984. Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not.
I didn't think you would have. All right, so the basic plot, I'm not even going to get into the basic plot. It's a crazy-ass movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it, just because it's completely insane. But basically, it's, Maxwell Lord, he's granting wishes to people. And one woman's wish is to have her lover, Steve, back. And the wish is granted in him appearing in someone else's body.
Okay.
Now, and she ends up sleeping with Steve in this. And there were issues from the fandom, issues of consent. Basically, this is not really your lover's actual body. So, this is kind of iffy morally. Well, Ben is not, it's not his body. It's his host's body. So, I'm not going to dive into that too much because I want to maintain some level of sanity, but I do have an issue with them fathering a child, in that it would not actually be Ben's child.
Right. And then we'd be forced to address the fact that this doesn't work the same way as it did in the original series, which I think they are trying to pretty much avoid completely, having that conversation.
Well, not only that, but you'd be saddling Hannah with a child that she's going to be raising alone because Ben's not going to be there, and Ben's going to have this child that he's never going to know, really. So, I mean, I would generally prefer them not going this direction. So, I would kind of prefer not to really engage in that theory anymore. But, all right. So, but thanks for commenting anyway. Kelly M., she commented on her Matt Dale tribute video, saying that it's a loss for the fandom, and so on and so forth. She also had some comments about last week's, or not last week's,
the last
month.
episode.
Yeah. The last episode. Basically, she addressed her issue about the witch trials episode.
Okay.
In saying that some people's criticism of the witch trial episode being too preachy is because it was saying that witch trials are bad. Now, she doesn't agree with this, but she's saying that that's what some people were saying. Anybody that holds that opinion is not somebody that I take remotely seriously.
Yeah, I have no comment on any of that.
All right, so she was also wondering about whether Ben and Hannah, engage in extracurricular activities during the course of that episode. According to an interview that she was watching, which I think I watched too, in Fate's Wide Wheel, Hannah said in that interview that there was actually a montage that they ended up cutting, which showed them holding hands and talking, having deep, meaningful conversations. They either cut it for time, or because, and yes, we hear a lot of Adam walking around upstairs, so we hear those loud little noises, creaking in the floors. It's not a poltergeist or anything like that. So, yeah, we're okay. But, basically, they either cut it for time or because they wanted it to be ambiguous as to whether they slept together or not. In her view, she doesn't think they actually did. that they just spent the night together. And she also thought that, Tom leaving the ring in a drawer easily accessible to anybody, the engagement ring that Addison finds, was kind of silly too. And, let's see. And yeah, she also agrees with my theory, and I think it might be yours too, that Hannah has something to do with the whole DARPA project thing.
Yeah.
Chris Coleman weighed in on the whole failure thing. Whether failing in a leap actually leads to getting stuck in time. And he points out that there's actually no evidence for that.
Right. But they seem pretty convinced that that's how it works.
There's more evidence to the contrary. He points out leap, die, repeat, and double identity as an original series example. So, yeah, he has a good point there. Ashley Wright felt that, we had a brilliant show as always. So thank you for that. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode.
Okay, so a lot of thoughts on this episode. I went into this expecting not to like it. Because it's an action-y episode, it's 1970, which is right on that cusp of, where I stopped liking time. Because, I don't like the 70s.
Right.
I liked it more than I expected to.
Okay.
Is where I stand. And I don't know if that's because of Hannah, because, I like Hannah.
Yeah.
So I was happy that we got to see her. And I liked that there was I saw a lot of, references in this, pop culture references, direct connections to A Hunting We Will Go.
Yes. It's actually funny, because at first, my first reactions to the plot of this episode is okay, we've already done this. We've already done the Bounty Hunter episode in this series.
Right.
In
A Decent Proposal.
And we compared that episode to A Hunting We Will Go. This is way more similar to A Hunting We Will Go.
And there are very specific references to A Hunting We Will Go that I picked up in this episode, to the point where I'm positive they were on purpose. You cannot convince me that they weren't.
Right.
Do you remember when...
there's some visual evidence of connection between the two episodes.
Do you remember... Oh, what was the music one?
Piano Man?
No, in the new series.
The new series. Fellow Travelers?
Fellow Travelers, yes.
Okay.
Do you remember in Fellow Travelers, I was like, this is definitely directly compared to Glitter Rock.
Yeah.
And then the creators, or I forget if it was the director, the writer, whoever interviewed, said, we never even watched that episode. And I was like, that's impossible. Because you followed it, almost exactly, right? With the whole light falling and all that. Nobody can tell me this time that this wasn't on purpose. And I don't know if anybody's going to say it was or wasn't. But I'm telling you it was.
Right.
It had
absolutely.
to be.
Yeah, there's some visual clues that directly ties into that episode. I came into this episode not really expecting to enjoy it either, because we, like I said, we already did the Bounty Hunter episode. And for the first half, I was this is kind of a lukewarm episode. And then in the second half, everything changes, and it's directly tied to the fact that Hannah's in this episode, which I did not expect to see. I did not expect to see her in this episode at all. And I was surprised when she showed up.
Well, I mean, they did tell us in the screener letter that she was going to be there, which I try not to read. And
I don't read that.
I'm like, don't read it. But then I just look over my eyes, because as much as I don't want to be spoiled, I also want to know everything there is to know, right? So I knew she was going to be there. And then also her name appeared in the opening credits. Which could mean she's there or not, because she is technically part of the main cast. Yeah. But I feel like her name isn't listed on the episode she's not in. I'm not positive about that.
I would have to go back and check, and actually I'm not going to. But yeah, so I did notice that, but I also assumed that because she's a regular, her name was in the credits to start with.
But I was surprised about how she appeared. I thought it was going to just be he does track her down, right?
Right.
But then it's she's literally in the middle of this.
Right.
So, I mean, Hunting We Will Go, part of the reason that, those things hit me is because we just covered that, right?
Right.
Within, the last month? During this hiatus, we covered A Hunting We Will Go, which I think is kind of funny, because if we hadn't done that so recently, I don't think I'd have picked up on these things, and I think maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed those moments.
Right.
So even though Hunting We Will Go is not a favorite episode, I still feel comfort in the nods to the original series.
Yes.
And it's a fine line. It's is this a good thing that we're being so referential, or are they doing too much?
Yeah, it's not a carbon copy of that episode,
well,
but it definitely cues very close to it. And by the way, Stacie is not feeling particularly good today, so
yeah, I have a cough, so I'm downing some tea. Hopefully that doesn't impale this too much, but doing a lot of talking is not exactly helpful for that. So.
Right. So yeah.
And I'll just put this here before we get into the episode itself. As far as, we're talking about the original, the Hunting We Will Go. And I just got to bring up that whole, trope of original series episodes that I've mentioned many times when we're talking about the original series, that I don't love. That are all kind of follow the same formula.
Mm-hmm.
That without individually looking at them and picking them apart and doing a podcast about them, I wouldn't know which of these episodes was which and would confuse all the details from them.
Right.
Because they follow that same cookie cutter format.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll read you the basic format, right? And you guess what episode we're talking about. And you can't, because there's 5 or 6 of them that it follows.
All right.
And this episode fits this template perfectly. So our leaper is either has someone in custody or someone that they are sponsored with protecting, right? They're with somebody and they're on the run. They're trying to get somewhere. It's a traveling episode. They're on an adventure. They're trying to get somewhere. They're trying to get to safety. Somebody is chasing them and trying to kill one or both of them. And then we find out that the person we thought is supposed to be the good guy is the bad guy that's trying to kill them.
Right.
How many episodes follow that exact format?
Off the top of my head, well, we already have A Hunting We Will Go. We got Her Charm, Permanent Wave.
Yep.
Let's see. I'm blanking on more, but I know there is more.
I also included on my list Piano Man.
Okay, yes.
And Maybe Baby, which deviates a little bit, but it's still kind of the same basic traveling episode where I even get to the point where I confuse the hotel scenes between that one and A Hunting We Will Go. Right. And that one was a little different, where it wasn't necessarily he's trying to get away from somebody, but they were trying to get away from the law, and then it turns out that, the law was the bad guy that actually kidnapped the child.
Right.
So.
Well, what's funny about this episode is they never really completely redeemed the main character that we're here to save. He doesn't turn out to be a swell guy.
No, that's the difference here. That's the one main difference.
Yeah.
Is he really is guilty.
Mm-hmm.
He really is guilty, but the other lady's more guilty because she, on top of being, smuggling diamonds and whatever, they're killing people.
Right.
So it's who's the guiltier party?
Right.
And yeah, Kevin's kind of a jackass.
And he remains so through the entire episode.
He's not a killer.
Right.
And the other people are killers, so.
Yeah. That definitely makes him better. But yeah.
So yeah, even though it fits that little pattern that I don't like, it's in an era I don't like, I still enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. It all kind of came together for me.
Yeah, like I said, first half of the episode was kind of meh for me, and then in the second half of the episode, it picks way up, and it becomes a different episode than I thought we were watching, to an extent, because they include Hannah in the episode, and like I said, I didn't expect to see her, and I was actually surprised in the way that they included her. But yeah, so do we have anything else to say before diving into this episode?
Yeah, let's just jump into the scene by scene.
All right. Ben leaps in. He's driving a car chained to another guy named Kevin, played by David Clayton Rogers, who's complaining and says Ben might have broken his wrist. Ben says he didn't break his wrist, to which Kevin celebrates him speaking. And Ben is a bounty hunter, and Kevin is his prisoner.
And we get a glimpse of the host in the mirror there.
Ben looks at his identification while driving. That doesn't seem dangerous at all. And finds out his name is Nick. Kevin says Ben is lost, and Ben agrees. We see the license plate, which reads, I find him, with an M at the end, and that was kind of cute. We cut to a phone booth. This is one of those callbacks to Hunting We Will Go.
Absolutely.
A visual callback.
He's there at the payphone, and we also see a mailbox sitting right next to the payphone as they zoom out. So it's very clearly our first nod to A Hunting We Will Go.
He calls his boss, and
and this is the character's name's Elena Carr, played by Alicia Logano.
And what's the boss's name again?
Elena Carr.
Okay, so Elena wants the prisoner back by midnight. And before he hangs up, he asks if she can find a Hannah Carson, which says if he brings the prisoner in, she ends up saying if he brings the prisoner in, she'll find him all the numbers he wants.
Yeah. So during that scene is where Ben gets the date. A newspaper
yes.
goes kind of flying in the wind and plants itself up against the phone booth, and it's a Trenton, New Jersey newspaper telling us that the date is April 10th, 1970. So we get an actual date this time. I love when we get an actual date.
Yes, that's pretty
sweet.
It's
possible it's a day or two later. I mean, it could be an old newspaper, but we got a date in there.
Yep.
And we're in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, Trenton, New Jersey is just 20 minutes from Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben knows he's in Hannah's vicinity.
Gotcha.
Which is why he's like, oh, look up Hannah, because I think he knows she's got to be here and I have to look for her, and that's part of this, right? He's expecting her to be around now because she's been popped up in half of his leaps recently.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that it's bothering me, that newspaper, the way it blows through the wind and like goes into his view like that. I feel like that's a direct reference to something, and I can't think of where that happened. Did that feel familiar to you?
It did, but I'm not sure to what. I
feel like that was a direct reference to something, and I couldn't figure it out. I was thinking Back to the Future, but I couldn't pinpoint a moment that it's reminding me of. But it's reminding me of something in my brain.
Right. So back at the project, the team is standing around Ian, who is examining the code that Tom found in the DARPA project. Okay, so Tom, played by Peter Godot. I'm going to take a little brief tangent here.
Okay.
That has actually nothing to do with Quantum Leap.
Okay.
Peter Godot is in Yellow Jackets. He appears in 8 episodes of that series. Yellow Jackets being relevant for 2 reasons. 1, it was a recommended show by the From community.
Yeah.
And 2, it's also part of the Saturn Awards, which are coming out that we're going to cover. I recently decided to take a look at the show because I was curious about it. I happened to have Paramount Plus and then added a little bit more to see Showtime to get the series. And you know what? I kind of wish I hadn't. Because, the series is pretty disturbing. I get why From people recommended it, because it kind of follows the same kind of genre in the sense that basically we have a plane crash with a bunch of girls that are stranded in this place. And there's a mystery because there's some kind of like force that's following them and continues to follow them in their adult lives after they're rescued. Peter Godot meets his character in that series meets a very unfortunate end, I should say. But it's pretty dark and disturbing. It's sometimes funny. But I made a cannibal reference in one of our From videos that you didn't appreciate. The show actually goes there.
Yeah.
And it's I wish I kind of hadn't seen the series because it's not a very feel good series. And afterwards, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to watch a comedy after watching this. But I don't think you would like it. But anyway,
I've heard nothing but good things about Yellow Jackets, and I know my husband wants to watch it, but I just don't want to subscribe to any other services right now. There's so many already. I think it's one of those things that I'll probably watch eventually.
Right.
Like maybe after it ends.
Yeah. I mean, that's
and
how
just do it all at once.
That's how I usually watch television programs until recently. All right. So anyway, back to the matter at hand. Ian is annoyed with everyone hovering over their shoulder, and Ian thinks that there's definitely something to the code, but it could take months before they manage to decipher it.
They say it's buried under a mountain of nothing.
Right.
And they haven't so far been able to really decipher what the heck anybody's looking at here. And Magic says, do your clickety-clackety thing and figure it out. And it was a really funny moment between Magic and Ian. We seem to get those moments a lot.
Now, speaking of which, are we completely dropping the plot line that we kind of started this season with the whole Ian has a microchip thing?
I don't think so. I think it'll come back.
Okay.
But it definitely was not mentioned in this episode.
No. There's a debate whether to tell Ben or not about the possibility of coming home, which is settled by Addison, who says they shouldn't raise his hopes until they know more. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah, they ultimately decide to just wait and get some more information about what they're dealing with before they get his hopes up.
Right. I mean, really, what could he do? He can't do anything about the situation. It's out of his hands. So what value is there in bringing
but also he could feel, left out if they're not giving him updates on what's going on. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Jen and Ian talk about Addison not getting proposed to in the last episode, and instead being told her ex might be coming home, and the effect that would have on her. And I guess that's Addison's dilemma in this episode, even though it's not really made clear.
Yeah, I didn't love the way they handled the Addison stuff in this episode at all.
Me neither. Ian ends up finding Ben. In the past, Kevin tries to go to the bathroom and handcuffs him to a toilet in the bathroom. And again, this is kind of shades of Hunting We Will Go, in that, he's constantly trying to escape.
Right. And he says in this scene he has an overactive bladder. I felt the need to look that up. That term wasn't first used until 1988.
Oh, okay.
So, bad reference there.
Well, he's a man ahead of his time by 18 years. Addison appears to tell Ben who he is, which is former NYPD Blue, now a bounty hunter. Kevin was arrested for money laundering, and in the original history, he was caught by the mob and did not meet a very pleasant end.
Yeah, Kevin is a lawyer, kind of scummy lawyer. All of his clients are money launderers and drug dealers and like all these really crappy people, and he got in with them, right?
Yep.
And you know what I thought? It'd be really fun if we had brought Jen in on this leap.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she could have had some really fun interactions with a scummy lawyer.
Yeah.
She understands the world that he comes from, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, in the original history, he skipped custody, and this arms dealer that he had double-crossed, named Fox, tortured him and killed him. And Ziggy says that Ben is here to make sure Kevin ends up safely in jail.
Yes, instead of dead, or in a million pieces. Ben says there must be something redeemable about the guy, because he usually helps out good people through a crisis. There is no evidence that there is anything redeemable about this guy whatsoever.
But also, that seems like a funny thing for Ben to say, the pacifist, right?
Yeah.
Because are you saying that just because he's a crappy guy, he deserves to be murdered?
Yeah, I don't think that's quite what Ben is saying. But I think he's trying. He thinks there must be something more here than just like trying to get have this guy to go to jail instead of being dead. But I hear what you're saying. Though. I don't think that's quite what he's saying. It would be funny if Addison asked him that question though, and we see his response to it. Addison says she'll keep digging, but tells Ben not to take his eye off this guy, Kevin, for even a second. Proving her point is Kevin, who's trying to break free of his cuffing in the bathroom using like a plunger.
I'm not sure what exactly he was trying to do. It was not going to work.
Back on the road, Kevin is trying to negotiate his way out by offering him money.
Yeah, and it ultimately ends up admitting he's a guilty criminal,
right,
even though he was protesting his innocence at the beginning.
Yeah, he mentions the fact that he's a lawyer and that he has a philosophy of radical selfishness.
Yeah, he's actually writing a memoir. He's got 6 chapters written so far.
Oh, I'm curious if that book was ever completed, if I should seek it out. They soon find themselves in a car chase, which ends with them getting the other car to crash into a tree, but the brakes in their car have broken, and they end up flipping over, and that's when our credits start. When we come back... Do you have some... Okay, no. I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm sucking on a cough drop.
Oh, okay. They soon find themselves... Oh, yeah, I already read that. When we come back, Kevin has uncuffed himself.
They're trapped in the car, right? And they're upside down. Ben actually gave Kevin the keys and was like, uncuff yourself and then help me get out, because Ben was stuck.
And for a moment, we're left to wonder if he is, in fact, going to help him at all or just take a run for it. And he ends up helping Ben out, and the car ends up exploding. Ben cuffs him again, which Kevin is mad about, saying he just saved Ben's life. And Ben says he's returning the favor. Kevin continues to try to bribe Ben, and as it turns out, him and his host have something in common, an ex-wife and fiancé.
Yeah, they have this weird chat about Ben's ex.
Addison appears for no reason at all.
Addison's there, so we have this another, like, we've done this before, where there's this weird conversation where Ben's kind of talking about Addison when he doesn't really need to.
Right.
Like, you could totally blow this conversation off. Like, it's about your host, not you. But he makes it about him, has this whole conversation about Addison and about how she deserves happiness and someone that's really there for her.
And why is she even here? She doesn't need to be here. She doesn't have any important information for Ben at all. But anyway.
Well, she wanted to make sure he was okay after the car crash.
Oh, okay. That's sweet of her. So, yeah, Kevin figures out basically his entire story. And even Kevin doesn't seem to buy Ben's theory that there's good in him. Ben ends up phoning the office. His coworker has found nothing on Hannah. And they end up boarding a bus.
Now, we get the second payphone scene here.
Yep.
And they're at the bus station. And this is our next reference to A Hunting We Will Go. Is we're about to get on the bus and we're on the phone again with the I don't know, whatever you call her. The bail lady.
Bail's bondsman lady.
Yeah.
I just called her the boss.
Yeah. But it was the same thing, right? We're at a bus station, we're on the phone. Like, this is the exact scene that played out in A Hunting We Will Go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the point where I'm like, okay, like, they're doing this on purpose. We're getting on a bus. And I literally said to myself, well, at least we know it's not going to involve a cowboy hat.
Right.
Because we're in New Jersey, not Texas.
Right.
And then it involved a cowboy hat. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Not in exactly the same way, but yeah, it still figures into
They
the
call
plot.
out a cowboy hat.
Right.
Which I thought was hilarious. But before we get to that, Kevin's playing with a teddy bear. An I Heart New Jersey teddy bear at the bus station. And we didn't mention this before, so I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. There's this issue where Ben hurt his shoulder after the accident.
Yes. Yep.
And both Kevin and Addison were like, oh yeah, maybe you should get that looked at. And that, that becomes important pretty soon.
They board the bus. Kevin continues to be super annoying, and he apparently stole a teddy bear from the bus station.
Right. He reports this is when Ben finds he actually took the bear that he had before told him to stop touching.
Kevin susses out the fact that Ben has a new girlfriend, and Ben ends up talking about Hannah in Cairo, while Addison is being a peeping Tom and listening into his conversation.
He said they've had 3 dates, the last of which was in Cairo. Again, important that Ben brings up this information.
Right.
That he totally does not need to share.
Right.
Ben shares a lot.
Yeah.
Even, when it's with somebody who knows better. In this case, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But even if it was somebody who, like, is his host's brother, he'll tell them details that don't make sense.
Right, yeah. He's done that numerous times.
He's not great at that.
Nope.
But it doesn't matter here because Kevin and this guy don't really know each other. Sorry, I lost my place. Go ahead.
Okay. I thought you were going to say something.
I had something, but I lost it.
All right. Addison talks to Magic about her conflicting feelings. He ends up suggesting to Tom, or he ends up suggesting that she talk to Tom, and Ian tells Addison that Ben is in trouble and that she is needed in the imaging chamber. Though anybody can do that, so I'm not sure why we need to run to get Addison to do this.
Right.
But whatever.
Ian could have just popped in and shared the information that needed to be shared.
Right. Especially if this is an urgent situation.
Right.
But anyway, they are in trouble. Someone is on the bus. This is where
one of Fox's guys got on at the last stop, and it's the guy 4 rows up in a cowboy hat.
Right. Ben takes Kevin to the bathroom, and then they end up jumping out the window. Ben is in trouble and suggests going to a doctor.
Yeah, he lands on that same shoulder again. Now it's bleeding.
Right. And Addison checks with Ziggy, and Ziggy says that, yes, he should probably do something about that.
Yeah, if he doesn't get medical attention, Nick is going to lose his left arm from the infection.
So Kevin happens to know a doctor, and once you know it, it turns out to be his brother.
Yeah, so Addison figures that out really fast. Ziggy says, oh, that's why the doctor he's talking about is his brother.
Right.
Now, this is one of the problems I have with this episode.
Okay.
We're soon to learn it's not really his brother.
Yes.
They're not related to each other. They were just in foster care together.
Right.
They weren't even adopted together. So they're legally not brothers.
Right.
How does Ziggy know that this is his brother that we keep referring to? This, and I think that's what I was going to say before, is that he's mentioned a brother a couple times now.
Yeah.
So a brother's going to come into this story, right? Because Kevin keeps mentioning his brother. How does Addison know? How does Ziggy know that this doctor's the brother if he's not legally or genetically the brother? There would be no paper trail of this is who he's calling his brother.
Right. I mean, you could probably find a association, but you wouldn't necessarily know that they're brothers.
Right. And if you knew that, you should also known that it's Hannah's husband.
Right. And
in the same moment.
And then maybe you should also know the fact that he has some kind of problem.
And is he about to die?
Yes.
Yeah. So the fact that they know this and not the other things that they should know is a problem for me.
Yeah, I hear that. So they end up going there, and the relationships between the brothers, not really brothers, is not good. He asked to be uncuffed as to not be seen that way.
By the nephew, which we brought the nephew up already before, too.
They knock. His nephew, Jeffrey, answers.
Yeah.
And his brother soon notices and is not thrilled to see him at all.
Yeah, so the brother is Josh Nally, played by Josh Dean. And the nephew is Jeffrey Nally, played by Connor Esterson.
Yeah, I looked into his filmography on an internet movie database. I didn't see anything of note that I wanted to point out. But yeah, it's Josh Dean. for those who would be interested in that.
And the kid, so it's the kid who answered the door, and we get Christmas Story references here. Mm-hmm. He's got a Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah.
And then when we meet the dad, Josh, he makes a comment about putting your eye out. So it's very referential to A Christmas Story.
Also, and I didn't bring this up, he's gonna give the teddy bear. Oh yeah, we weren't in the scene that he's been sending teddy bears to Jeffrey all this time,
right? And which for a moment it looks like, maybe this is his redeeming factor, right? He really loves his family, and Ben kind of gives him this soft look, like, oh, you stole it for him. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Right? Yeah. So it seems like, okay, well, here is the redeeming moment. This is where, we find out something good about this character. Yeah, not so much.
And Kevin gives us a line here. And he says, this kid is going to run the world one day. Mm-hmm. And I'll come back to that later.
Okay. So Kevin ends up making an excuse for why they're there.
Yeah, he says Ben's his driver.
Which is quickly dispelled by Ben himself when he's being examined by the brother. And we learned that he grew up in foster care. That they grew up in foster care together. Ben admits to being a bounty hunter and asks if there's any hope for Kevin at all. The brother doesn't seem to think so. Kevin had his chances and he wrecked them all.
Yeah, and he compares them. She said they were in foster care together. They were been on their own since they were 12, so neither of them ever got adopted. He compares them to Eddie Haskell and the Beeve from Leave It to Beaver. Of course, Kevin is the Eddie Haskell character, the one that's always in trouble.
Right.
And earlier, Kevin had given us this story about how he worked really hard in high school and was almost the valedictorian so he could win a scholarship. And at the last minute, they gave it to somebody else, right?
Right.
We learned here from Josh that what actually happened was 2 weeks before graduation, Kevin was caught stealing money from the petty cash fund. And that's why they didn't give him the scholarship or the title of valedictorian, and they gave it to Josh instead.
Oh.
Who was then able to go on and become a doctor because of that scholarship.
Right.
So it was that one moment of deciding to steal money is why basically Josh ended up with the life that Kevin could have had.
Right.
And their roles completely swapped. And maybe that's where that whole selfishness thing first rooted, right?
Right.
Because he was probably stealing the money to help both of them. Mm-hmm. And he ended up losing his scholarship over it. And instead, Josh got this whole life that Kevin wanted for himself.
Pretty crappy. Ben calls the office. She offers to pick him up, his boss, Elaine.
And he gives her the address, exactly where we're at.
And who should show up but Hannah, who turns out to be married to Josh.
Yeah.
Which, okay, there were no pictures in this house?
There were. We see Ben looking at them later. I guess he hadn't noticed them yet.
Okay. All right. So they end up having dinner.
Yeah, and Ben doesn't really know how to handle this situation. So he hasn't said a word to Hannah.
Right. Yeah, because she's married with a kid, as it turns out. Jeffrey is her son.
Yeah, it's been 9 years for Hannah.
Right.
Now, for Ben, it's been a day.
Right. And, this keeps happening to him. But Kevin ends up blowing his cover by bringing up his date in Cairo, which sets off alarm bells in Hannah's
Instantly,
head.
Hannah knows what that means.
Right.
And she doesn't even have to ask. She goes off on him.
Right.
We learned during this that Hannah's career has advanced during this time, and she is now the first woman to chair the physics department at Princeton.
Oh, good job.
And Josh is very successful also. He is dean at Rutgers Medical School.
So Ben ends up going outside. Hannah confronts him, asking if he was really not going to tell her that he was there, despite his promise. Ben admits to not knowing what to do in this situation, because it's kind of a weird situation.
Mm-hmm.
They end up embracing, and it's been 9 years since they last saw each other. Now, this takes care of a problem. This makes her not the time traveler's wife. Because she's moved on with her life. She had a husband. She had a kid.
And here's what I think. I think part of it, because she made him promise, you look for me next time. You find me.
Right.
And I think the fact that he had promised that is part of the reason she was able to move on. So she didn't continue to second look at every single person she passed on the street, questioning if they're Ben.
Right.
So she was kind of able to, and this is how I'm interpreting it, just kind of put him on the back burner, allowing her to move on. Because the 6 years prior to that, she hadn't moved on, right? She was looking for Ben constantly. And I think just knowing that he promised he'd be the one to reach out just gave her the space to maybe move on and start a relationship. Although, I do think she did it very quickly.
Yeah?
Because Jeffrey's 7 years old.
Oh, yes. Okay. And
it's been 9 years. So she only waited about a year before meeting somebody and getting pregnant.
Nice. All right, so Hannah realizes that if Ben is there, someone is in trouble. She asks if there's Nazis nearby as a joke. Ben says he thinks he's there for Kevin. She thinks that if ever a soul needed saving, it was his. And Aslan watches from the monitors. Why is she watching? Like, there should be a privacy setting on this whole monitoring system. Like, she shouldn't be just sitting there watching this conversation because this is a private moment. But anyway, they go back inside. Josh and Kevin are arguing. I'm not even sure about what exactly. I can't really follow the argument.
It seems like they argue about everything.
Right.
That's their relationship.
They go upstairs, continuing the argument. I think they're going to shoot a teddy bear or something.
Something about, using the BB gun.
And Hannah realizes that they might not get another chance to talk, so she takes the opportunity to show him an invention that she made with Jeffrey. And she talks about motherhood. She goes to kiss him, but Ben resists because she's married. She asks if she thinks it's possible to love more than one person at the same time. Ben isn't so sure, but Hannah is, and so am I. I do believe it is possible to love more than one person.
Sure, but it's also kind of sucky that she's trying to kiss him while her husband's upstairs.
Right, yeah. No. It's not necessarily the most moral thing in the world to
do. I
get
that she feels love for both of them, but that doesn't mean you act on it.
Right, indeed, okay. So we have this weird close-up shot of Hannah and Ben at the same time. Like, they're directly on their face, like, really tight shot. It's a kind of a bizarre directing choice there. But Jeffrey interrupts. Ben asks about Kevin, who's in the basement, ripping the heads off teddy bears, which turns out to have stolen goods in them. Diamonds or something?
Yeah, all the diamonds that he smuggled. We found out before that's why Fox is after him, because he took Fox's smuggled diamonds. And they're in the teddy bear. So he's been hiding them in these teddy bears, presumably for years, because Jeffrey told us that he gives him a teddy bear every year for his birthday. Now,
if you happen to pick up these teddy bears, you wouldn't feel something amiss in these teddy bears? Like, you wouldn't notice that there's, like, something not normal in them?
Maybe not, because oftentimes stuffed animals have, like, stuff in them. Okay. Like weighted centers.
Okay.
So this was very referential to me, and I don't know if you'll get this reference. Do you remember the Chipmunk Adventure?
No.
Okay. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
All right.
They had a feature-length movie in the 80s called The Chipmunk Adventure.
I don't believe I ever saw it.
So it was the Chipmunks and the Chipettes. They get recruited to go on this world. They were racing around the world. There's hot air balloons involved. Bad guys are chasing them. And it's the girls against the guys. And it turns out that the whole thing was about stolen diamonds.
Okay.
And the chipmunks were being used to smuggle the diamonds. And the diamonds were inside their little dolls.
Gotcha.
That they were carrying the whole movie. It was little doll versions of themselves. And when they cut them open, the diamonds were inside. And that's how the stolen diamonds were being transported.
Well, that sounds like the plot of a lot of episodes of that series. Also could be the plot of a Scooby-Doo episode.
So this immediately took me there. The diamonds being inside of the toy.
All right. So Hannah's pretty pissed. Basically, Kevin has been unknowingly involving Jeffrey in a crime. And also possibly putting Jeffrey in danger. Actually,
all of them.
Not just Jeffrey, every one of them.
Right.
Ben has had enough, and he ends up cuffing him again. Back at the project, Ian and Jen talk, and they realize that Ben's boss is working for the bad guy. Addison tells Ben tells Hannah, And Kevin is really confused during this conversation.
Yeah, because Hannah and Ben are having a Hannah-Ben conversation.
Right, yeah.
And Kevin's just like, what are you guys talking about? And Hannah acknowledges Addison.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, who? What? Do you guys know each other?
Right, yeah.
What am I missing?
Right.
He probably felt like he was going insane in that moment.
Having a stroke or something. And I found this whole little bit very well done.
Because they completely ignored him and the fact that they're supposed to be covering what's happening.
Right. And it's a pretty funny scene. Hannah ends up coming up with a plan to set a trap for the people that are coming for them. Josh becomes involved and objects to Hannah being the one to carry out the plan, but doesn't do it for very long.
Yeah, she's basically like, Josh, take the kid upstairs and hide.
We can see who wears the pants.
Nick and I have a plan. And he's like, what do you mean you and Nick have a plan?
Right,
we just met this guy.
Yeah. So yeah, this is also well done, and I think they used this relationship to good effect here. So they set up the trap, which involves electrocuting the bad guys, which feels like something out of a Home Alone movie.
Absolutely, this reminded they're setting up the trap in the basement. And it felt like Home Alone.
We even have a character named Kevin here.
Exactly. So yeah, they're using the rock salt and the hydroelectric turbine that she built to electrify the water. And they explain it in kids' terms for Kevin and for the audience. Mm-hmm. And basically what's going to happen is they're going to turn on the electricity and anybody standing in the water is going to get electrocuted. Mm-hmm. So when it's time, you get out of the water.
Right. They use Kevin as bait. Bait goes upstairs to talk to the bad guys and stalls in a really bad way. Like, I don't think he's doing a particularly good job here. I'm not sure why they don't just shoot him and go search the house.
Right. Well, they might have figured they still need him if they can't find the diamonds.
Maybe.
So yeah, it's Elena that's here. The guy that had been on the bus with the cowboy hat, he's here, and one other goon trying to find the diamonds.
Ben downstairs says this is not how he pictured a fourth date. Hannah says she's had worse. Really? She's had worse than this? Okay, I want a spin-off series where we see Hannah going on these really bad dates.
I would love to just see Hannah's life.
Yeah,
let's just step aside from Quantum Leap for a minute. Give us a whole episode of just following Hannah's life.
And then we could have like a person randomly go up to her and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm Ben," and not actually see Raymond Lee as Ben. See, the other character instead.
Just get to see her talk to everybody. Like, "Are you Ben? Yeah. Are you Ben? Are you?" It's like, "Are you my mother?" That book.
All right, NBC, make
and
this
then
happen.
Somebody will be like, "Yeah, my name's Ben. How you doing?"
All right, so
we in this scene we again do the thing where we give the accelerator.
Yes.
Credit for being what's in charge here.
Yeah, and I've already covered why that annoys me so much. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse here and talk about that anymore. But yeah, it really, really annoys me. Kevin leads the crooks downstairs. The trap is laid, but it doesn't get everybody. A fight ensues, which ends up with Kevin getting the last of them, which happens to be Ben's former boss.
Yeah, Ben goes hand in hand with her. Hannah attacks her with a broom, and Kevin ends up shooting her in the eye with the BB gun and gives this comment like, "Oh, I guess you really could blow your eye out," or whatever.
Yep. So we get another reference to A Christmas Story. And by the way, did you know there's a sequel to that movie with the adult?
I think I heard of that, but I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either, but I heard it's out there. So Hannah comes... Oh, yeah, okay. So Ben ends up letting Kevin go. His reasoning being, "Hey, I was hired to bring you to my boss, and it's not my fault that my boss then got arrested."
Right.
So yeah, and it's not also not like we're redeeming the character any. He's the same old SOB that he's been the entire episode. Mm-hmm. There's like I said, there's not even anything. He didn't even steal the diamonds for a good reason. Like in a Hunting We Will Go.
Right. I just thought of something though, like. The big bad guy is Fox. Elena works for Fox.
Yeah.
Fox isn't here. Elena's arrested.
Yeah.
Isn't Fox still going to come after him now?
Maybe. Maybe that's why he relocated to South America.
Yeah.
But anyway, they end up saying goodbye. Josh and Kevin ends up saying goodbye, and Josh ends up pointing out that this is the most positive interaction they've had in years.
Yep. Kevin ends up leaving in Elena's car.
Right. Which is, I don't know that that's a good idea, but
So where are the bad guys at this point? Are they still, passed out in the basement? Have we not called the cops at all yet?
Well, didn't they arrest Elena?
I mean, we're told they're arrested, but wouldn't they have arrested Kevin at the same time?
Yeah, I would think so.
Have we not done that part yet?
I'm not sure.
Or, did we just pretend Kevin didn't do anything?
Right.
While they were here?
Yeah. Kevin's just an innocent bystander.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit vague.
But Kevin leaves, and now it's just Ben and Josh and Hannah.
And Hannah's like in the back on the steps watching the scene unfold. And I was wondering, are we going to even get a goodbye between the two of them? But so Josh thanks Ben and then says goodbye. Hannah comes to say goodbye to Ben.
Bring him his coat.
Yeah, bring the excuse that he needs his coat. They say goodbye without a kiss.
Yeah, he says, you have a lovely home. And it was meant as a place saver of all the things I want to say right now, but Josh is watching.
Right. And Hannah says he's welcome back anytime. And I have a feeling we might come back to this. She tells him that Kevin... Oh, okay, so Addison ends up telling...
Yeah, Josh and Hannah go inside. Addison gives the rundown, right?
Yeah.
The here's what happens.
Kevin has a new life in South America. Kevin donated most of his money to some kind of charity, a scholarship or something along those lines.
He said they make a scholarship, like the scholarship he missed out on from his school.
And then she notices something that she doesn't like on the hand link, and apparently Josh is going to die in 18 months from something...
A ruptured aortic aneurysm.
Which, according to Ben, is an easy fix.
If it's detected early.
And so he decides he can't let Hannah go through that. He wants to go and tell Hannah, but as he does so, he leaves.
Yeah.
Now, initially, I was really confused because I didn't think... I thought we stayed right there and that we should have seen somebody leap back in. But when I watched it again, I realized that we kind of like zoom in so that we're kind of past that. And we're more on
we're looking at Addison's... reaction to Ben not being able to pass that message along. And let's finish and then we'll come back to...
Okay. Addison confronts Tom at the project, saying she found the ring. He ends up proposing, and she accepts.
A very anticlimactic scene.
Yeah.
She doesn't even give him a chance to talk. She's just like, yes. And the whole thing was just like, that's what we've been waiting for all this time.
I didn't love that. I didn't really like the project scenes this week that much.
I'm at the point where I don't give a crap about Addison and Tom.
I mean,
I don't care what happens with them one way or the other, to be honest.
Yeah, I have been there all season long. I mean, I like Tom, but
I feel like they did a good job giving Tom redeemable qualities, making us not hate him, right? But then I'm like, okay. Like, the only reason you're here is... so that Ben is single and can fall in love with Hannah. That's the only reason you exist.
Right. I mean, basically, I only care about the characters in terms of their relationship with Ben. He's our main character. He's the one we follow week in and week out. I don't really necessarily care about the project scenes and the drama that happens back there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they could have made me care more about this, and they didn't.
No.
But you know what? We only have 42 minutes a week, so we don't have time to care about them.
Right.
As far as... okay, so where we left things with Hannah and Josh.
I'm assuming that we're going to come back to that plot line.
So this could go 2 ways.
Yeah.
One, Ben still has time to save Josh.
Yeah.
As long as he leaps sometime in the next 18 months.
Maybe that's going to be the finale.
As long as he leaps sometime between this moment in 1970 and 18 months... and was able to give Hannah that message, he can save Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Or we let Josh die, and that opens the door for Ben and Hannah to pick right back up where they left off, which she's happy to do with or without a husband.
Right.
Allows them to pick right back up where they left off, and it removes that sadness that we would have felt if Hannah had just waited her whole life for Ben and never settled down. Because she did get married. She did have a kid.
Yeah. I'm really curious. Like, you know, I've been wondering where they were going to go with this plot line for the entire season.
Yeah.
I still don't have a clue where we're going with this. Like, which direction are we going to go in? Are we just is this just about their relationship, or is there something more going on here that we're going to see?
There's definitely something more, but I don't think we know what it is yet. Yeah. And I hope that we do get some wrapping of all of this. We only have 4 episodes left to do it in.
Right. And you know, this plot line is supposed to wrap up this season.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3 is a little unclear.
You know, I feel a little deja vu because I feel like the last handful of episodes in season 1, we were saying the same thing. Like, are we getting somewhere with this? Are we going to wrap this up because we're supposed to be wrapping this up?
Right. Yeah. And you know, last season they did a really amazing job with the closing of season 1.
Except for a couple things that you and I still had issues with.
Well, of course. I mean, we're always going to have issues with things, but at the same time, they did do a decent job wrapping up that storyline to a point. There's some dangling chads from the finale that I think at some point we have to get back into. Presuming we're going to have a season 3, which is by no means guaranteed at this point.
Right.
And by the way, if you'd like to see this series continue, there is a Save the Quantum Leap campaign going on. It's not currently in cancellation. I should point it out. They have not yet canceled the series.
We're in that point where they're going to be making a decision based on these 5 episodes.
Right.
So the best thing you can do is watch the episodes live. Even if you're not watching at 10 p.m., turn your TV on and let it run if you have cable. Watch the episodes on Peacock the next day. Rewatch them. Keep playing. Play all 20 whatever episodes of Quantum Leap on repeat if you can.
Right.
And that will help. And we also started a letter writing campaign, the fandom in general. And it's not, like the, hey, please don't cancel us. It's, hey, we love this show. We want more. We can't wait for more. Let them know that we are paying attention and we really want to see more of Ben and co.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll include the address for that to send letters. I'll make sure we end up putting that in the description of this video.
Okay.
So let's see. The problems I found, we talked about that one. Like, how did they know that he was the brother without knowing that Hannah was involved? And on that same line, you can't tell me, given where we were last week, the other times since Hannah's been around, you can't tell me that Addison has not done a deep dive on Hannah.
That's been my issue all along, is by now, the number of times that they encountered her, why wouldn't they look at her entire history?
Right. We've never been told, like, oh, this is what happens to her. And I get that it's changing every time, but there's no way. Like, we can tell Hannah's feeling jealous Addison's feeling jealous about this whole situation.
Yeah.
Especially last time when she was like, oh, he loves her. And she had this, like, moment where she realized that. There is no way. I'm telling you, there's no way she didn't learn everything there is to know about Hannah. Which means there's no way she didn't know who Kevin and Josh were until we met Hannah in this episode. There's no way. And there's also no way she didn't know Josh isn't supposed to die in 18 months.
Right.
She should have already looked all of this up. I'm sorry, that's what would have happened.
Yes. This coming from the female perspective, from someone who should be working at the CIA. Yes, women usually look into these things, and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
So,
and, they have access to know all of this very easily.
Right.
And even if Hannah didn't, like, Ziggy should have pointed this stuff out. Way quicker than they did.
Right. I can understand maybe not doing that the first time they encounter her.
No, but at the beginning of this leap, we should have had all that information.
Yeah.
It should have all been like, here's where we're at. And there's no reason that it unraveled at the pace that it did.
Yeah.
So I think that's just kind of silly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you think that he's going to save Josh, or do you think they're going to just move on with their relationship after Josh dies?
I don't know. That doesn't seem very Quantum Leap-like. To just let Josh die.
Yeah.
So
I think he might try to save him, but fail.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that's definitely going to end up being something of a plot in this
I guess it depends when and where he leaves, right?
Right. Yeah, I imagine that maybe that's even like the point of the story is to save Josh's life.
Possibly. Okay,
but that's not really dramatic enough for a season finale.
I told you earlier I had a theory.
Okay.
Jeffrey. The kid.
Yes.
As soon as Kevin said, this kid's going to run the world, I think Jeffrey is Rachel's boss.
Okay.
The one that designed the chip.
Gotcha.
Jeffrey he was born around 1963, so he'd be approximately 63 years old in 2026.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think that Jeffrey's Rachel's boss. Possibly still think that could be the start of Lothos.
Okay.
Maybe, maybe not. But I think Jeffrey is deeply involved in what's happening right now.
So basically, Jeffrey is going to turn out to be the villain of the piece when it comes down to it.
Well, not necessarily. We don't know what their intentions are with this chip.
Right.
One thing I thought is possibly the whole reason this is happening is Jeffrey's trying to save his dad's life.
Maybe.
And that's why he's trying to get time travel through the chip.
I mean, if that's what we're doing, we should probably bring that up real quick.
Yeah. So I haven't mentioned this yet. I'm guest hosting this week on the Fandom Entanglement podcast about this same episode. And one thing that, and that'll be dropping a little later this week, so keep an eye out for that. One thing that came up during that discussion, because I brought this theory up, and they commented to me, well, the chip existed before Ben met Hannah, which is true.
Yes.
So it goes back to what was Hannah's original history. Maybe she was always destined to marry Josh and have Jeffrey. We don't know.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, if in the original history this kid didn't exist, that does kind of break my theory that he's the one behind the chip, because the chip already existed before Hannah was on this path.
It does seem like Ben has put Hannah on this path in the first place.
But, you know, there's some things that are fate and destiny that you can't change.
True.
And then there's also, you know, the whole DARPA thing. Right. That involve Hannah? Does that involve Jeffrey?
Right.
There's the whole 3-year gap. Does that involve any of this somehow? Does it all relate back to each other?
It seems like it has to. Otherwise, we're spending a lot of time on the story.
The chip itself.
Yeah.
Could the chip itself be the reason for all of these leaps? Could there have been something in that chip that affected Ben's leaps?
Okay.
And is the reason he met Hannah in the first place? You know, the way season 1, they were all predestined. Maybe they don't know it yet, but maybe the chip is what predestined all of this to happen. And why he keeps running into Hannah.
So it wasn't just about information, that was about influencing the project itself.
I mean, maybe.
Interesting.
I don't know. A lot of theories to throw out there. We'll see.
Yeah.
We got 4 more episodes to go over the next 3 weeks, so I'm looking forward to them.
Hopefully those won't be the last 4 episodes, but that kind of depends on us to a limited extent. A lot of the power is going to be NBC's, of course.
Yeah. But everybody, just make sure you're watching as early as you can and as often as you can.
All right. So do we have anything else to say about this episode?
I think we covered it. We'll look forward to 210 next week. I don't have the title in front of me, but it should be a great one. It's another Shekinah penned episode.
Oh, yes. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's right. That was the episode that Shekinah was doing. Which one is Deborah Pratt directing?
The one after that.
Okay.
11.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we would like to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? What did you think of the podcast? Stacie can be reached at? You can be reached
on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a way to support content creators such as ourselves. And you can become a member of this channel for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.